the Football Pod on Off the Ball in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. Hashtag the toughest.
Hello there, and you're very welcome along to episode 4 of the Football Pod. We're going to get straight into it, Paddy Andrews, because James O'Donoghue has joined us live from Miami. James in Miami, come on.
Will Smith.
Miami.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I
That's
don't know
dedication.
how. It is dedication, isn't it?
Yeah,
To the
fair play.
cause, to the pod.
I thought you'd be by the pool there today, sunburnt and fuck with an old pina colada, but to be fair, very professional, Jimmy. I am surprised.
I did have a pina colada, but I'll tell you, it's raining. It's been raining since we landed. Yeah, 2 days.
Oh, no.
2 days of solid rain, like as in
So we're not too
horrific
jealous.
rain, storm, everything.
Oh, God.
Perfect for watching football though this morning. So it was ideal.
Good man. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Let's just linger on Miami just for a moment. So you're over for a wedding, your brother's wedding.
Yeah,
Big
Tommy's
deal.
wedding. Tommy and Catherine getting married tomorrow in Key West,
Lovely stuff.
down the very bottom, southernmost point.
I'm looking up the weather here for Key West, and you're looking good for tomorrow. A bit of sun. Is it an outdoor
tomorrow,
wedding?
yeah.
An indoor wedding?
Oh, it's outdoor, yeah, outdoor wedding.
Unreal.
For a bit of sun.
It'd be nice. It'd be
Lovely
nice.
class. Great. Well, look,
But I think the weather, it's windy then, like it could be lovely, and next thing the wind could come in and just take everything off the table. And
yeah.
I don't know, I wasn't expecting the wind and the rain, to be fair.
Have you seen any crocs, any crocodiles yet? No?
No, lots of warnings though, lots of signs. Don't go into the water or you'll be eaten.
How many points are you going to have tomorrow?
And there's
then?
a few-
How much-
there's a few
how much
snakes on the
heed
place.
of that will you take tomorrow?
I'll take it handy tomorrow. I should be on good behavior.
Yeah. Well, look, we wish Tommy and Catherine all the very best. So
Yeah.
that's in the
Fair play.
football pod. Any last wishes for the bride and groom?
Any last wishes for them?
Any words?
Just
from
a
their-
lifetime of happiness. I wish them all the best and all the luck in the world. Amen.
That's it.
Ah,
All right.
You're a professional at this crack now, Jimmy.
Let's get down to business, lads, because it's been another cracking weekend of football across the 4 divisions of the National Football League. James O'Donoghue just shows how frivolous it is to get stuck into predictions. You're back, baby. Cork.
I am back, baby. Thank
Hammered
God.
Kildare and Newbridge.
My
Did
Twitter
not see
blew
that
up
one
again this
coming.
morning. But it doesn't say much for Kildare. Do you know that they could turn up at home and just get turned over that easily? But I knew there was a kick in Cork. Even last week, kicking 19 points and still getting beaten. Once they tightened up at the back, there was always a kick in them.
You knew it.
So I was happy to see them raise a gallop this week, but very disappointing result at home for Kildare.
We're recording here on Sunday evening because of the wedding tomorrow, and I'm just watching Andrew Mernan's shot on goal take a deflection off of the Mayo defender.
Jimmy, this is what we're going through. 4 minutes into injury time.
I'm recording
Our
here.
man Mayo, Reid O'Neill has just kicked an absolute belt. Mayo were home and hose. They were 5 clear and it's back to 1.
So we've got a
I'm
minute
behind.
to go.
He hasn't kicked a free yet here for me.
Right, well, he kicks
We-
it, Jimmy.
So he
I'm
kick it.
He kicks it.
Everyone listening to the football pod will have the benefit of knowing the result by the time we get to it. But we're planning to get to Kerry or Armagh and Mayo in a couple of minutes. There's a point to go here with 2 minutes of injury time. So yeah, like Cork, like what is going on in Kildare, Paddy? Like they were doing all right last week, and it took them 27 minutes to kick a point at home today against Cork.
That's the surprising thing. And look, we didn't get to see it live, obviously, because it wasn't being covered. We'll get highlights this evening, but that is surprising with Kildare. It was at the game in Croke Park last week. Look, as I said last week, it wasn't a great game against Dublin, but there was definitely some sparks for Kildare. Jack Robinson in the corner, Jimmy Hyland, Daniel Flynn made his comeback today off the bench.
There you go, James.
And the
He's back.
Newbridge, they're just so hard to play against in Newbridge. And Kildare have such a strong record there. It was such a surprise. And they didn't score for the first 25 minutes, T. Isn't that right?
Yeah, 27. 2 points at half
27
time.
minutes, which is, that is worrying. And, you know, we spoke previewing the leagues that you felt Dublin and Derry, and they both 2 from 2. You'd expected them to be promoted, but Kildare are probably the next team up behind them. And they're 0 from 2 now. They still have to play Derry as well. It's a surprising start to the campaign for them. And we've seen this across all the divisions. There's teams that are probably outperforming what we expected, and there's teams that we would have expected a little bit more from, and they just seem to be, for Kildare, that's worrying. That's not a good start to the season for them.
Yeah.
Particularly with the games they have left to come. And if they're getting that well beat in Newbridge, that is worrying signs for Glenn Ryan and his team. But for Cork, fair play to them. They'd have been very disappointed losing that game to Meath in Porky Queen last week, but that's a big turnaround and a great response from them, to be fair.
Yeah,
But
100%.
it's so hard. It's so hard to call the result at the moment because
Isn't
nobody
it?
seems to be able to put two good weeks back to back. Like you could put all your faith in someone, they could leave you now.
Oh,
What
lads,
happened,
just
Tommy?
a crazy moment here. Oh, McLaughlin, what are you doing? Mayo are a point up. Armagh on the attack. Rafferty takes it through the tackle. He gets turned over. Mayo are on the attack with maybe 8-on-4, and they bring it out to the sideline. I think they're going to play keep ball. There's 20 seconds to go, and McLaughlin takes a shot. They're a point up
Lads get excited, don't they?
with nobody in nets, and he puts it a mile wide. And now Armagh have one last attack.
Time's up though, is it?
I think they have one last attack.
Free, is he? No.
Rafferty can
Oh, he
play.
gave it.
Did he give the free?
I do not think that is if Rian O'Neill is looking for that free. Oh, I'm surprised at that. Fergal Kelly.
Live watch along here on the football pod. Yeah, Phil Green was at the
He's
game.
playing for that. He's playing for that free.
You can tell us. You can tell us what happens. Yeah.
Lads, you really shouldn't be recording live here.
Well, we got to do. We got to do. Phil Green was at the game in Newbridge today,
Oh.
James, and he said Cork are fitter, stronger, quicker. They're cuter and smarter with their movement inside. They're really well coached. You can see it in their collective defensive structure. Kildare in response, and I mean this honestly, have shown nothing in the first half. Cork are jamming up the scoring zone and turning them over constantly. So that's going to be worrying for Kildare. Paddy, we might talk about this a little later on the pod. Kildare are 0 from 2.
It is worrying for Kildare, but the thing is, Cork had a serious kick up the arse last week against Meath because I know that they went into that game thinking, if we can win this game, we're looking up, and they got to kick up the arse. So they would have gone in and just regrouped straight away, got their defensive system back intact, and even Meath today got 4 goals. Yeah. So they're obviously Meath are doing something right in attack, but that tight field in Newbridge, if anywhere is going to suit Cork, I think a tight field in Newbridge actually suits them because they can play that defensive system, and then they can kick. They have kickers up front. So that field would suit them.
Yeah, 100%. The early game today that was live on Division 1, Kerry against Monaghan, wasn't the greatest watch. We saw
a great game, was it?
No, it wasn't a great watch. We saw the comeback of Paddy Clifford, who scored, I would say, on one hand, a brilliant goal. It was a sublime finish, but that man has seen better defending in every junior game he's played this year. And the performance of Donal down O'Sullivan, full time in the athletic grounds. Armagh drew with Mayo. So
7 minutes of injury time. Yep.
My God. So I'd say that McStay will be fuming with Owen McLaughlin for taking that shot.
McStay's got
to have to do is run that position.
Mayo were excellent in the second half. Actually, really, really impressive. The Aidan O'Shea experiment, obviously playing inside the square. They started to get real dividends out of it. Jordan Flynn, to be fair, to an excellent game at wing forward, not known for his scoring prowess, but he was causing all sorts of trouble in the second half. And for Mayo to be in that position, 5 points up coming down the stretch, and you think that Armagh really, really struggling in that second half. Mayo could have clamped on big time on Ethan Rafferty's kickouts. For them not to see that game out from there it's so disappointing for them. Surely the next day there's frustration there. Aside from the last play, okay, Rian O'Neill, it's probably a soft enough free. I think he's definitely playing for it, but Mayo get the referee an excuse.
If that's in Castlebar, he's not getting it.
Yeah, possibly, but for McStay, look, two games undefeated. It was their last kick of the game last week, but Ryan O'Donoghue, it's gone the other way today for them, but they'd be disappointed to be in that winning position. And a team as experienced as Mayo, with the likes of Kilmacud O'Connor, Aidan O'Shea, they had their experienced guys on the pitch at the end. For them not to close that out, that is a frustrating ride home for them from there. But for Armagh, to be fair, keep going all the way to the end. And Rian O'Neill was a bit hit and miss with his frees earlier on, but he stands up and nails it. So an exciting game, but you always get that when you're watching Armagh.
Yeah, for sure.
I find with Armagh, they get some great scores. All their scores seem to be almost straight off the training ground. They're kicking, getting off the shoulder, getting Rafferty involved. But they kind of seem to find it difficult to just get the easy scores, just chip on 2 or 3 handy ones. They seem to be either getting a great score or it's a free. They don't seem to be able to just work a nice handy score to kind of keep them ahead by those 3 or 4 points in a game. If they could do that, I think that they will be in the top bracket. But until they can get those easier scores, they're not going to be top 3 or 4 yet.
Yeah, we're going to come back to Armagh Mayo a little later, Paddy. Let's just talk about Kerry Monaghan though for a little while. While we have O'Donoghue still on the line, he will be departing us halfway through the pod today. James, you got to make your way to Key West, so we're only going to keep you another 15,
pick up
20
the
minutes
rings.
here. But before you go, talk to us about the new boy, Donal Down O'Sullivan, because he would have come across everyone's radar today. Got man of the match in his first start for Kerry, scored 1-3. Darragh Roach also scored 1-2. But for me, I thought O'Sullivan looked the class above today. Like, I don't think it's much of a surprise to the people of Kerry. Am I hearing it right that he scored 213 in a club final last year for Kilgarvan?
He did. He is a prolific scorer. And even last week, he came on against Donegal and straight away he was brave, he was aggressive, he was showing out in front, he was taking his man on, got in for a great score, fisted it over the bar, had another shot that just dropped short, but you could tell he had that kind of scent for a score straight away. Like, it's fine to be kind of doing all the hard work and all the difficult stuff, but you need to have that kind of scent of a score in you all the time, and he has it. Like, he's used to racking up massive scores for Kilgarvan, and if he can take any sort of that scoring form to Kerry, he'll be touching that.
What is he, James?
He'll be 22. I think he'll be 22.
Yes. He's got to get better.
He's young, but he has been kind of stocky, strong young fella for like 5 or 6 years. Do you know those fellas who just kind of carry that build? He's been in his body for a while. He's comfortable in his body.
He is the cut of a county footballer. That's the way I put it.
Yeah. He does.
He looks like he's ready to play county football. Yeah.
He kicked one score today where he just came off the shoulder in the first half and he put it miles over. Like, it was just a great score. Pure natural. Didn't think twice. Just swung it over.
Yeah. But his club Kilgarvan tweeted, "Our hearts are bursting with pride. The first Kilgarvan senior football player to play for Kerry. His first game starting, and he only goes and wins man of the match. That's our Donal O'Sullivan down."
Yeah, it is. It's a lovely story. But there's a place in that team there for him. Do you know, there is. If he he has a great head in his shoulders, a lovely young fella. If he can just stay focused and actually go for that, I think there's a place there for him, because there's scores in him.
That was my question, because that Kerry have always had it. They've all, whether it be Kieran O'Leary or Barry John Kane, that are either starting one year or maybe coming off the bench in another year. And you had the likes of Killian Spillane over the last couple of years. Tony Brosnan's in around the panel. Are Darragh Roach and Donal O'Sullivan fighting for one spot in the 26, or could one of them actually break through and start this year for Kerry?
There's a fine line between both. If a player that's starting in National League is never thinking about a place in the panel at that stage, then they're thinking, can I stay in the team here? And Darragh Roach has a great mentality. I know him. I play with the two of them with these Kerry. They both have that kind of single-minded mentality that they'll be going for that. As soon as they think, I hope I hang on to this squad place, like, that's not the mentality you want to have. Like, they're never going to think that. They're going to say, I want to be starting 15 for Kerry here. They are going to be fighting for one spot, because realistically it's going to be Clifford and probably Sean O'Shea playing top of the D. So it's going to be a fight between Paul Gainey, Darragh Roach, Donal Downs O'Sullivan, Tony Brosnan, and Killian Spillane for the 15 jersey, I reckon. So there is some serious competition there.
But isn't that that's what Jack O'Connor wants? That's what he needs. What we've said, Kerry will probably ease their way into this National League campaign. You could see that. You can see it in their team selections. But in terms of an overall squad, Kerry probably are the most settled. And they won a brilliant year last year with Jack O'Connor coming back. We know they've got two of the best players in the game, with Sean O'Shea and David Clifford, to come back into that team. We see Paddy getting a run out today and making an impact. But for Jack and for Kerry, they're looking for maybe one or two of these guys. So it's Power Warren gets a go at wing back today. Shane Murphy was excellent at goal, keeping pressure on Shane Ryan. That's what Jack is looking for from this National League campaign. They're not going to be overly perturbed whether they win the thing or not. But that today, he's looking at 2 or 3 players standing up and saying, okay, give me a headache. And that's the interesting thing. And I was looking at Killian Spillane again today. Comes on. He's got to be a bit frustrated that he would have been expecting, I'm going to cement my place in this National League. That I know David Clifford's going to be away, so I'm going to be the main man. He's a bit erratic in his shooting last week. Doesn't start today. Probably the same again when he comes on. We know he's lively. We know he can get scores. But it's 2 of the lesser known guys, the likely Darragh Roach and O'Sullivan today, I've been impressed with both of them. And you're right, like, it's a big ask for both of these guys to be in the starting 15 when we come into the summertime. But all they can do at the minute, and all Jack O'Connor will want, not just those guys, but anyone that's getting a chance, is make it hard for me to leave you out. Make it difficult for me. And you even see it with the likes of, I thought Paul Murphy was excellent again today. Thomas Sullivan was top class. He had a good battle with Conor McCarthy in the first half. And then second half, he just started a Rolls Royce of a score. So for Kerry, they're having a lot of work done, I feel. You can see that there's maybe some guys
They probably needed
a
this.
little bit of timber.
They probably needed that result, didn't they? Because there was a bit of pressure on them. They're thinking,
you expect them to win their home games, Jimmy, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, pick up 6 points there, maybe get a win on the road, and it might be a late push for the playoffs. But for Jacko, it's more, look, we're staying in Division 1, obviously, but can we get 2 or 3 guys to supplement an All-Ireland winning team? And today, they'll be happy with it. It wasn't a great game. They didn't have to do a whole pile to beat Monaghan. And on Monaghan's side of things, we said, lads, from week 1, we felt they were going to struggle to stay in this division.
Yeah.
And to be fair to Vinnie Curry, you look at the first half and it was more of a contest. They look well coached. They're getting bodies back. They've got a brilliant keeper in Began. Their kickouts. They're looking to kick past the ball up the pitch. They're trying to do the right things, but I feel they're just blunt in attack. Look, they've had one of the best forwards of his generation for the last decade. They're missing Jack McCarron as well through injury. And without McManus and McCarron, you just feel Monaghan, as good as they do a lot of good things, but they just seem very, very blunt in attack, that they're just not going to get enough scores. And then, to be fair, the second half, they just run out of steam, which, look, that can happen in a game the first week of February. But we expected them to be right up against it. And it's looking that way for Vinnie Curry, to be fair. But for Jacko and for Kerry, it's a good win. And like I say, 2 or 3 guys putting their hand up.
Yeah,
I think that was the best thing that could have happened for Kerry. Like, they obviously won the game, but you can't read into that result really from a Kerry point of view, because Monaghan were so poor, especially in the second half.
Second half was
floodgates. They were just like, you can't read into the result too much, but all you want is maybe for one forward to catch fire, to be able to take that confidence into the bigger games. That's all you can really take from some of those games, especially at home. But if you're a Jack, fair enough, there's a couple of corner forwards putting their hands up. They still need to get that midfielder. Do you know, if David Moran's gone, you need that leader in midfield that's going to be able to kind of drive the team in the big moments. Like, it's fine kind of coasting to victory today, but we need another midfielder to put pressure on the boys.
I thought the lads weren't bad at midfield today, Jimmy.
Yeah, no, they were excellent.
No, look,
but
they're Kerry struggling on Began's kickouts. They're going to hand down
one of the best. You're just talking about replacing David, like, absolutely, aerially, even so strong.
Did either of you ever feel the heat in a league campaign? Do you know, James off the back of winning an All-Ireland or Footballer of the Year, or Paddy off the back of winning All-Ireland? Can you remember a particular league where you were like, oh Jesus, like, I'm under pressure here?
Every league we were in.
Yeah, do you always feel that, Paddy? Did Jim Gavin always have the ability to generate that pressure?
Yeah, and again, there's just the depth of the squad, and that's what you feel like Kerry have that. Now, that's the big plus for Kerry and for Jack O'Connor, that guys have to be on their toes. And like I said, this is pretty much Kerry's second string team that he's putting out in the National League, and they're dominating a Division 1 team today. That's the beauty of having squad depth. But for us with Dublin, it was just always, if you're getting an opportunity, that's why we had such a good record in the National League for 4 or 5 years. Every team wants that. Every team wants to have it. But for Kerry, there's no doubt, we said it last year, the depth of their squad is a massive, massive plus for them. And again, you can see it today.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's just go through the results from Division 1. Kerry 3-16, Monaghan 14, as we said. It was close at half-time. It was 10-6, but Kerry absolutely pulled away. Tyrone have beaten Donegal by 16 points to 8. McCurry kicked 7 points. Darragh Canavan kicked 3. Rory Canavan was added to 26 at late notice, so we're getting closer to seeing the two Canavans together. And Armagh 17 points, Mayo 17. As we brought it to you live on the Football Pod, as we were recording at the start here on Sunday evening, like, that's 2 draws now on the bounce for Mayo. Paddy, as you mentioned, Ryan O'Donoghue with the equaliser last week, and this week they squandered it after being 5 points up. So the good and the bad for Kevin McStay to work with early on.
I thought in the first half, like, Armagh were getting loads of bodies back, and I watched things because we would have faced this challenge a lot when we were playing with Dublin. Mayo have a lot of possession, but Armagh have 13 or 14 guys inside the 45. And you look at the setup, they've Aidan O'Shea inside, which you obviously get a sense McStay is going to try and use that throughout the season. The Mayo shape in their forward line is really good. They've guys right out on the sideline, the guys right inside the full forward line to try and stretch that defence. But if you're playing against a blanket defence like that, something has to move fast. So you either have players coming from deep, like a train, the likes of Elite Keegan, Rossies, Mullen in years gone by, Paddy Durkin, all 3 of them are obviously not there for different reasons. But if the players aren't going fast, then the ball needs to go really, really quick. And the objective when you're playing against 14 or 15 guys inside the 45 is turn the defence. Try and move the ball quickly into one of the corners and get 4 or 5 of these guys to get dragged to the ball and then get it out of there really quickly for a shot on the other side. And in the first half, Mayo just didn't really do that enough. They had loads of possession and their shape was good, but the way the ball was moving was just so slow. And if you're an Armagh, we're so happy for this to happen in front of them. It was just over and back. And Mayo might think, oh, we're being really patient. And I get that, but they're not challenging the Armagh defence at all. That changed in the second half. You could see they're 8-4 down. They get a couple of scores towards the end of the first half to keep them in it. But in the second half, it's far more purposeful from Mayo all over the pitch. They're starting to kick balls into Aidan O'Shea. They're getting joy out of that. The guys like Jordan Flynn, Matty Rowan bursting through. Matty Rowan gets a brilliant score in the 47th minute. It actually just levels it up. I think it was 10-all with that score. But it was perfect for playing against the blanket defence. Now, Armagh have bodies back, but himself and Jordan Flynn cut in at full tilt behind the defence, and all of a sudden, despite Armagh having loads of bodies back, Mayo cut right through them. And that's what it was so good for Mayo in the second half. Like I said, he pushed up on Rafferty's kickouts. It was like Mayo of old, and they get themselves 5 points up, a totally winning position. And I'm ready to come on and say, already you can see McStay's influence there. But down the stretch there, they're going to be so disappointed not to win that game. But that was the interesting thing to look at for Mayo. Yes, O'Shea was inside, really passive in the first half with their attacking play, but they had real purpose in the second half, and they were getting rewards out of it. But for them, look, I would have tipped Armagh to win this game today, and it looked like it at half time. But to be fair to Mayo, for that third quarter, they were excellent, but just they would be ruined that last 4 or 5 minutes.
James, I think in that third quarter, though, Tommy, just before you say, I think what happened was Armagh were getting to a certain part of the field. It was around just outside maybe Mayo's 45-yard line, and they were turning the ball over kind of
a lot,
very easily, and that completely played into Mayo's hands because they could break with runners. But in the first half, it was like Armagh were able to leave Mayo build up really slowly and get bodies back, and Mayo didn't know what to do at all.
Yeah,
they couldn't. When it was slow, Mayo didn't have kind of the cuteness to be able to get nice shots off. But when they turned over the ball and could go at it fast with runners, they're so accustomed to that, they could do it. But it was when it was held up and slow, they just didn't seem to be able to get the shots off from the half forward line.
But isn't that it, Jimmy? For Mayo, they have to get used to that. If they're going to go deep into the All-Ireland, you are going to come up against that. They'll come up against it with Galway, all top teams. You look at Kerry today, Kerry are getting loads of bodies back. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to go far in the All-Ireland, you need to be adept at playing against set defences. And it's never really been a strong point for Mayo. We've always said that they thrive when the game is chaotic. When it's turnovers, 100%. They can fly from everywhere, and that's what Mayo want. And yeah, to an extent, you got that in the second half. But to be fair, in terms of their setup, I was watching it closely in the first half. Their shape up front was really good. If have O'Shea as a focal point, they're really wide, but they just weren't challenging the Armagh defence because it was just too passive. It was too slow. It was ponderous. There wasn't enough. I'm not saying you need to start kick passing all the time inside because that's difficult against 13 or 14 guys. But you've got to be slick on the ball. It's got to be quick. If it's hand pass, by the foot, or runners from deep. And Mayo in the first half, it was just really passive. And they were completely outplayed. They were 8-4 down. They get a couple of scores just before the end of the first half, which bring them back into it. But it was a total change in the second half. So as a starting point, like I say, we're only 2 games into this for Mayo. There's plenty of things to work on, and you can see the start of McStay. They have ideas. They're still really brave on kickouts. They're pushing up and they're playing on the front foot, which is good to see. But like I said, they'll be how that game finished down the stretch. They'll be frustrated with that. For an experienced team like Mayo, you'd expect them to see that game out.
Yeah, as you mentioned, and there's a lot that we'll keep an eye on with Mayo. But one thing that stood out, and it's Kevin McStay sticking by his word, is Aidan O'Shea starting at full forward.
Yeah.
And McStay has said this numerous times over the years, but I'll pick out one time he said it in particular, and it was on the Mayo Football podcast last year. He said, my position on Aidan O'Shea hasn't changed for 10 years. Put him full forward and build your team around him. If I had him in front of me of a panel I was running, I'd say, Aidan, we're going to build this team around you. We're going to bring this as far as we can. You won't be going out to midfield, and you won't be going out as a false 6, and you won't be doing any of that fire brigade stuff. You'll be inside in the square, and we're going to play football slightly differently. If you've the 2 O'Connors healthy and in form, you've got Conroy, O'Donoghue, and Aidan O'Shea at 14. There's 5 players that'll win you any game.
He's right. He's right.
And he said,
I bet Michael Murphy would like to hear that.
And he said, I'd find another workhorse somewhere to tidy up the game for me. So we have an idea now what Kevin McStay is looking for later in the summer.
You can see it today, of course.
And is it going to work? Have you seen enough over the years and today to suggest that it might work? Aidan O'Shea at full forward.
There's not that many scores in Aidan. Everyone knows it. Like, he's not going to score that much. So he has to be winning it out in front, top of the D, and you have to get those runners off to slip it. Like, but if the ball is in front of him, he's going to win it. His hands are unbelievable. He's massively strong. How many fullbacks in the country would actually like to mark him? No, probably Sean Kelly from Galway is the only one physically who'd actually match up with him. Do you know, the Kerry defense wouldn't be that physically strong. I'm thinking anyone in Dublin, they probably wouldn't want to get their hands on him. So I agree. I think that is his spot.
In there. If the ball going in is good, chances are he's going to win it.
Yeah.
The issue then is can they get guys off? And Killian O'Connor gets more minutes today. Right, O'Donoghue looks back and he's sharp after the kind of nightmare season he had. Okay, do you want to get Tommy Conroy back in there as well? But to be fair to McStay, he is definitive in that, which is good. And I think that's been probably an issue for Aidan O'Shea, that he's kind of fallen between two stools. He's playing centre forward one week, he's midfield the next week, he's inside for 5 minutes. It's never really clear what Mayo wanted to get from him. And then the supporters going to get on his back because they're thinking, well, if he's full forward, he should be scoring 5 or 6 points. Like Jimmy, you said, that's not his game. Whereas McStay seems to come in and he's like, this is your role. And that clarity as a player, even for someone who's been around as long as Aidan O'Shea, that can give you a lease of life.
Yeah.
You're not being asked to do 20 different things. We want you in here and we're going to play off you. I'd say Aidan O'Shea gets energy from that as well. And you could see it today. I thought it was a really good performance by me. He kicks a couple of scores himself, which is a plus as well. But the good things that Mayo were doing, particularly in that third quarter, he was involved in it. Yeah. And Mayo were looking for him. And then, like I was saying, the space starts opening up. They can get those kick passes into him. And yeah, but without a doubt, we're going to see more of it. We're going to see more with the rest of the National League and into the Championship.
Can I put it on the record here? There's very few full forwards like David Clifford. Aidan O'Shea at 14 doesn't need to get a bucket load of scores. He just needs to create.
He's not going to.
As you've said, win ball, win frees, lay it off, create carnage, create chaos. Like, I'm not sure Kieran Donaghy, he was probably a more natural full forward. I'm not sure he ever racked up huge scores, whether it be points, but like he could come in with 1-3 and he could set up 3 or 4.
It's just about being effective, Tommy. There's a focal point there for Mayo. And we said it last week, for McStay, the big thing he needs to try and find for Mayo is they need more scores. They need to do something different up front because what's happened over the last 10, 4 or 5 10 11,
years 12, Paddy.
Hasn't been good enough.
Yeah, they need it from 10, 11, 12. I think that's where they need the scores from. They need a threat there, so they're not dropping back in front of O'Donoghue, say Conroy when he comes back, you know, Aidan Shea. But if I was Aidan Shea now, right, if you think of his attributes, he should be kicking frees in training morning, noon, and night for marks. Because he's going to get marks all day, every day, in every game. And if he has the confidence to just take a step back, settle himself, and throw over a couple of points or maybe 30 yards, like that would be an incredible addition to Mayo, I think.
Yeah, because O'Shea used to be trigger happy back in the day, but the one thing that stood out over the last couple of years, especially the last couple of years under Horan, he was turning down opportunities to shoot, and then in that Dublin game, where they eventually turned him over, he missed that mark early on the wrong side. And he had a couple of wides early on that day when he was playing close to the square. So you never know if he's backed and this goes on. That could have a big impact on the year.
That's even that season alone, he's playing in different positions. If he knows, I'm going to be playing full forward on this Mayo team, you are going out and you're practicing your scores. You're shooting. You are getting your eye in as much as you can because there's no ambiguity now. McStay is, like, he's come out and said it. You can see it even last week and then today. He's going to be on the square. So you better get working on your shooting. And I'm sure he will. He's an experienced player. But that kind of indecision that you could see, that Dublin game's an obvious example. He's just not confident to take shots. It was...
No. Yeah, for sure.
You could just see a guy who's just, I don't want to take this on. So he needs to get that sorted. I'm sure he will. But today, for him, look, there's loads of positives for Mayo today, despite the finale of the game. And like I say, even talking about Cork, Kildare, this is early stages of the season. So we always say, who's building a little bit of momentum? What game plans are these new coaches trying to bring in? And you could see that from Mayo and McStay today. So it's not all doom and gloom, but they definitely would have looked to have got the win up there.
Well, Paddy, myself and yourself are going to be giving out midterm report cards around the divisions in the next little bit here on the Football Pod. James, just going to finish off the results and we'll let you go head to Key West. Division 2, Louth 111, Derry 211. Louth so unlucky, we'll come to that in a few minutes. Late onslaught from Derry got them over the line. Big win for Derry and RD. Meath put 4 goals past Clare, 4-8 to 16 points, a 4-point win. Come back to that.
You called it.
The good and the bad. I call it. And
Goals.
Clare nearly came back from the dead.
7 goals in 2 games.
There you go. Limerick 111, Dublin 217. Dublin were in total control at half time, took the foot off the gas in the second half. Limerick came back into it a bit, but Dublin blooding a couple of new players as well. Fenton with the goal, Rock with the penalty. A big result there for Dublin. A nice win for them. Cork 214, Kildare 7 points. We've briefly touched on it. We might come back to it a little later on. That's a huge win for Cork, getting their season on track, and Kildare looking better in Division 2. In Division 3 on Saturday night, Down robbed Antrim. They robbed them. A 1-point win. A couple of late scores late in that game in Park Esler. A late show from Down. Pat Havern is flying at full forward, talking about full forwards in form. And Oran Murdoch in midfield, a young fella, getting rave reviews around the place, is flying for County Down and Laverty. So they have 2 wins from 2. Offaly and Fermanagh was 1-1 apiece at half time today, lads.
Classic.
It got a bit better in the second half. Offaly edged that one 1-9 to 1-8. So Liam Kearns is definitely getting a bounce. I doubted him at the start of the year, but he's getting a bounce from Offaly.
I told you, lads.
2 wins from 2.
Tip. My boys.
Tipperary are in serious trouble. They lost Connor Sweeney this week, the dreaded cruciate. Thoughts with Connor Sweeney and also with Kieran Byrne of Louth. Both of them suffered cruciate injuries at the weekend there last week. So Tipperary had a savage start against Cavan, 1-2 to 1 point up, but that was really as good as it got. They lost 119 to 1-7. And in the Midlands El Clasico, Westmeath hammered Longford 4-16 to 9 points, despite it being a draw, 8 points apiece at the break. So Longford only scored 1 point in the second half. That's the top scorers across the entire 4 divisions are Leitrim. They bet London today, 312 to 115. But boy, was it heart and mouth stuff. I was listening to it on Ocean FM. Leitrim were 8 points up, a man up with 10 minutes to go. London equalised in injury time, and Leitrim just got over the line. Keith Byrne kicked 1-7, just showing the benefit of having a quality forward at that level. Carlow bet Waterford by 4 points on Saturday night. Laois with their second win, they've beaten Wexford 118 to 113. And in the Crossmaglen derby, Wicklow, Sligo. Wicklow lost by 6 points. Tony McEntee's Sligo beating Ushing McConville's Wicklow. They edged it with a ruthless second half performance. So that is the results from round 2 of the National Football League. You are listening to the Football Pod. It is brought to you every week by AIB, proud sponsors of the Senior Football Championship. Check out the toughest for more. James O'Donoghue, we will bid you farewell.
See you, boys.
Enjoy Miami. Have fun in Key West.
Get out of there, please.
What do you call your man Horatio? Is it from CSI Miami?
Horatio Kane.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. That's what dyed the hair ginger.
Come back in one piece, Jimmy. Avoid those crocodiles.
Yeah, have a great time.
I will if I can.
Yeah.
Go on, boys.
Thanks, James.
Down.
Talk soon.
See you
We're
later.
going to be back
Bye-bye.
with Paddy Andrews in a moment. All right, you're very welcome back to the Football Pod with Paddy Andrews. Just Paddy Andrews. We let James O'Donoghue go there. He did well to make it all the way from Miami,
I'm
didn't he?
surprised we got him at all. Even 10 minutes with Jimmy there. Roman, the shorts on off camera.
Yeah.
To be honest, if I was in Miami, I don't know how much use I would have been to his lads.
Yeah, well, I think James definitely had 1 pina colada. He may have had a few more, so he did well to keep it on the show. We'll see how next week goes. So we're looking forward to that. Next week we will be talking a little bit about Sigerson. That'll be it'll be given a Sigerson weekend. It's a free weekend in the National Football League, and we'll be previewing round 3. So we're 2 rounds down. So we're getting an idea of the teams that are in a bit of bother and the teams that are going to be doing quite well. And one team that we've maybe slept on is Davy Burke's Roscommon, Paddy. Yeah. They've had 2 huge wins, 2 wins with very similar situations. They've been down with about 10 minutes to go, and their bench has made a huge difference. Ben O'Carroll came off the bench today, kicked 2 points. Kieran Murtha came off the bench today, made a big impact. Richard Hughes came off the bench and kicked the winner, 9 points to 8. Yep. So that's huge for Roscommon. 2 wins early on in Division 1.
It's massive. And look, I've been a critic of them in the past. I didn't expect it from them. Davy Burker's come in. You got the sense that they were struggling to get a new manager for a lot of the off season last year. You're thinking that's never a good sign. But to be fair to Davy Burke, he's a great record underage teams. He's come in, and Roscommon, like, an excellent win to kick off their campaign at home. If you feel like, in terms of relegation, that's what you were looking at for Roscommon. They need to win their home games in the Hyde. They got off to a brilliant start last week. Tyrone are very sloppy, but Roscommon are very clinical with their opportunities. We've always said they've got guys that can score. Enda Smith, Donny Smith, the Murtaz. That's never really been an issue for Roscommon. It's been at the other end of the pitch. That how hard are they to play against? We would have had a similar accusation, I suppose, of Galway for a number of years, that really talented players, but they're too easy to get at. But for Roscommon to win that game against Tyrone, and Tyrone are street smart, Roscommon managed the game down the stretch well against a massive wind. Really, the momentum they would have got from that, and to go over to Salt Hill. And I have to say, I was impressed with Galway last week against Mayo. Okay, you look at today, Finnerty's missing with an injury. He's an important player for them. They lose Damien Comer early in the game as well. He could potentially be a massive loss. We see how important he was even last week against Mayo. And then they're obviously Mr. Shane Walsh, who's away travelling. So for Galway, not at full strength, but I'd still expect them to win that game over in Pearse Stadium. But Roscommon, to be fair, it's a dogged game, 9-8. You know, it's not a classic. There's always a gale force wind in Salt Hill. But for Roscommon to come out of that, two really battling wins against two very good teams the first 2 weeks of the National League. If you're saying that, you know, they're the biggest question marks I would have had against Roscommon, those tough games, you never felt they were going to come out on top. Even look at last year losing to Clare in the All-Ireland series of Croker down the stretch. That's the biggest plus for Davy Burke. They have 4 points on the board, and the manner of those two wins, and particularly today, to get a win on the road in Division 1, it's massive for them, and it sets them up really well. They need to carry that on now over the next 3 or 4 weeks and try and push on. But for the Rossies, that's as good a start as possible.
Yeah, absolutely huge. For Galway on the flip side, they lost Rob Finnerty last week. They obviously let that lead slip against Mayo late on in Castlebar. There was a couple of positives in the game. Shane Walsh is away for a couple of weeks. Today they lost Damien Comer. Yeah, he was stretchered off after 10 minutes with a leg injury. So best wishes to Damien. I don't know what happened or how bad it is. So we keep an eye on that.
Not too bad for him.
Desi Keneally come off the bench, kicked 3 points. Ian Burke come off the bench and kicked his first point in a couple of years for Galway. So he's back in the panel. It's a bad loss. Would Pork Joyce be worried that they only have 1.2 games in, or is this a league campaign?
It's hard to know. Like I said, I felt they would have a very strong league campaign, similar to Mayo today up in Armagh. I think Galway would have been kicking themselves that they didn't close out that game last week in Castlebar and got off to a perfect start. I don't think he'd be overly concerned yet. I think the issue for him is injuries. That would definitely be worrying. What we said the season is so condensed now. Rob Finnerty looked bad last week, being carried off, couldn't put any weight on his leg. We don't know the extent of Comer's injury, but they're massive players for Galway. Massive players. So definitely, I think that's the more concerning thing, more so than maybe not getting the result today for Porrick Joyce. Like I say, it's still early in the season. They're not even only 2 games into the National League. You can turn it around pretty quickly. And like I say, there was things I was impressed with them last week against Mayo. They'll need to bounce back, but more importantly for him is, can we get these injured guys? Hopefully they're just collision injuries and it's only a couple of weeks' time. Shane Walsh, when can we get him back after his club campaign with Kilmacud Crokes? Because Galway, they had momentum last season. It was a good year for them. They definitely don't want to be getting dragged down into relegation stuff before the start of the championship. I don't think they will, but definitely the most pressing thing for Porrick Joyce, I'd say, is bodies, that we're getting these guys back on the pitch sooner rather than later.
Yeah, at the start of the leagues, looking on from the outside, and it's always hard to predict these things, but we were saying that Monaghan are in a bit of bother. We were suggesting that Donegal, even though we did say that they could get a good game in against Kerry in that first game, given the players Kerry were missing, Donegal could be in bother, and we definitely had Roscommon in the mix there. But it looks like Roscommon's 2 wins may just lead them to avoid the yo-yo nature of their last couple of years.
Yeah, it's still early days, Tommy. Do you know what I mean? Like we're 2 games in, and like it is quite erratic. Even so, we looked at the swing that Cork had from last week to this week. For Roscommon now, if I'm sure Davy Burke and Roscommon players, they're not thinking about relegation. They've got 2 from 2. They're sitting top of the league. For Donegal, it was a big win for them last week for Paddy Carr. You know, they were struggling the first half, tough conditions. They managed to turn it around. This week, you got a sense they were going to find it difficult against Tyrone. You expected a bounce back from Tyrone, and they've got that. For Monaghan, there hasn't really been any plus for Monaghan in their first 2 games. And I think the worrying thing for Vinnie Curry today was just the nature of that second half, that they just looked flat. Kerry didn't really have to get out of third gear at any stage in that game. And I think the worry for Monaghan, as we were saying earlier on, they just look a bit blunt.
Yeah.
Where are they going to get big scores from? Like, they've relied so heavily on McManus and Jack McCarran previously. And you feel like that's going to be an Achilles heel. But for Donegal, I think that's probably more realistic. Look at them today, probably well beaten by Tyrone over at Healy Park. They need to pick up points in their home games. I think, looking at where we are now, Monaghan have a massive, massive task to try and stay up. But for Donegal, they'll need to pick up points in Ballybuffet. But Tyrone, they'll be happy today getting the show back on the road. Like, so I was disappointed with their last quarter last week against Roscommon. For an experienced team, and obviously the conditions were favouring them. Huge wind at their back. They just seemed to panic down the stretch, which was surprising from a team of Tyrone's experience. But today, it feels like that gets their season up and running. Darren McCurry back kicking scores. Derek Canavan, look, we spoke about him a couple of weeks ago about cementing his place in that Tyrone team. They'll need him. They need newer guys to stand up with the turnover they've had in their panel. But no doubt for Fergal Logan and Brian Dewar, they'd be a lot happier this evening than they were coming back up the road from Hyde Park last Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned Donegal there. Donegal Monaghan in round 3 after the week break next week. That's going to be a huge game. It's in Monaghan, and then Donegal have Galway in round 4 and Mayo in round 6 at home. Just to give you an idea of the table, it's Roscommon on 4 points at the top, Armagh on 3, and then Kerry, Tyrone, Mayo, Donegal all on 2 points. Galway have 1, and Monaghan have 0 points. Moving on to Division 2, Paddy. Derry and Dublin are both top with 2 wins from 2 apiece. So,
as expected, but I think the surprise today, it wasn't as straightforward for Derry.
It wasn't as straightforward for Derry, yeah.
And for Mickey Hart and Loud, like I said at the start of this, when we were doing our quite questionable predictions, that I felt Limerick and Loud would struggle. Limerick have really struggled. Now, they've played arguably the 2 toughest games in Dublin and Derry, but the manner of their defeats, you feel like they're going to struggle to get any sort of points in this division. But for Loud, to be 0 from 2, you might think, oh, we expected that, but they will feel very hard done by not to get anything out of Ennis last week against Clare. And today, again, to be in such a strong position against one of the top teams in the country, but Derry just nicking it, pulling away at the end, Mickey Hart, and losing a Kieran Byrne during the week. That is a tough start to the season, and they probably do deserve a little bit more than what they've got.
Yeah, for sure. And like I saw them in Ennis last week. I have a feeling Loud will cause bother for a couple of teams, and they may well.
I think so. Yeah,
they may well stay up. Me, they're also on 4 points, and I'm absolutely not getting ahead of myself here. They had a big win.
We've never spoke about Meath as much on this podcast, and that's what you as host for 3 years. I
am taking my opportunity, but 4 goals today, but only the 8 points. Is that something that you would find alarming?
Look, there's a couple of things you find alarming with me. Like we said it last week, they're by no means the finished article. But for Colin O'Rourke to come in and to pick up two wins from 2, it puts them in a really strong position. And the plus thing, we said it, you can see what they're trying to do. There's a very set way of playing. We're going to kick the ball. We're going to be really direct. We're going to be brave in opposition kickouts. I think there's probably questions at the back, and Clare are probably not the best equipped team that they'll come up against to really test that Meath defence. But they have guys that can score, that know where the posts are. Issue for me, losing Shane Walsh today.
Yeah.
And this is the big thing. Every season, we don't want to keep beating on about it. But guys playing National League, playing Sigerson Cup, you're playing 2 really, really tough games, high quality games in tough conditions, week on week on week. He'll be missing, for you'd imagine, for DCU in their semi-final in Sigerson on Wednesday. But you can't say you're overly surprised when you're seeing guys pick up these injuries with the load of games they're playing at the minute. But if you're Colin O'Rourke saying, well, look, he's one of our best forwards. He's a guy who we're looking, we can build our team around, so we're going to play him. And DCU are the same. We're going to win the Sigerson Cup, we're going to play him. But it's a big ask on players, and we're seeing these injuries. But he was excellent last week. But for me to lose him today, it's other guys standing up. And they have dangerous forwards again. And to be fair to O'Rourke, he's playing to their strengths. It's going to they'll be exciting to watch. There's bigger tests, obviously, in Division 2. The 2 big games, they have Derry and they have Dublin. Dublin coming to Navan in a couple of weeks' time, which is going to be a brilliant occasion. Yeah. But as a starting point for me, you can see progress already.
Yeah.
I was questioning, is O'Rourke the man for this? Is he, at the cold face of modern tactics and things like that? He's a good team around him, and he's got the county with an energy around him again. And we said it, like, if you're a young Flynn Mead and Colin O'Rourke is the coach, you want to impress him. Sure. He's a legend of the game, and he's not reinventing the wheel, as he said it himself. We're going to kick the ball inside, and it's up to our boys inside to do it. And so far, over the first 2 weeks, they've been able to do it. And it's a brilliant, brilliant start for Colin O'Rourke and for that Mead team.
Listening to the game on LMFM and speaking to a few people who were at it, it was clear that the hallmarks of last week's performances in both Mead and Clare were there again. Clare's lack of efficiency around the scoreboard let them down at times, and Mead, their direct style, while it paid off with goals, and they had a 15-second spell where they scored a goal from a high ball and intercepted a kick out for another one, which definitely stretched them ahead. But their risk-reward style, their kicking the ball away, let them down at times. And is that something that's going to come back to bite them, and they might just give up on it? Or do you persist? Do you persist with it, Paddy?
They're not going to be the finished article in their first 2 games in the National League. You feel, and this is not just me, I think every team is going to get better the more and more games they play. It's a new style of play for them. We said that, but that's what Mead demanded. That's what they had to do. They had to find players, and they had to settle on a style of play that's going to suit those players. So, yes, they're kicking the ball a lot more. That is inevitably going to lead to turnovers, but they will improve at that, and they'll find the balance as well. Okay, you might say it's early days. Let's just try and kick everything in because that's what we're being told to do. I remember we started trying to bring in specific tactics in Dublin. It did take us time to figure them out and work out the nuances of it as well. I mean, you're going to see that with Mead as well. But if you were asking, like, Tommy, you're a Mead fan, and from the outside looking in, what would success be like if we're sitting here on the 5th of February and say, well, we've 2 wins from 2, a brilliant win down on Cork. We've got a couple of forwards who are really exciting. Okay, we're kicking the ball away. And like I said, that will probably come back to haunt them against the likes of Derry, who play that counter-attacking style, or against Dublin, where Mead are open at the back, and Dublin can hit Conor O'Callaghan and these guys, and Dean Rock and Kerry Kenny. But as a starting point, they'll get better, and they'll get a little bit sharper around those things. But I wouldn't be overly negative about Mead, Tommy. I could be very negative about Mead in the past.
I'll take it. I'll take it when I get it. I'm going to come back to Dublin in a second, but rooted at the bottom of the table are Limerick. As you mentioned, they've played the 2 toughest teams in the division so far. Kildare and Louth, as we mentioned, Louth were very unlucky, and I do reckon after seeing them, they'll cause bother to other teams and have a fair shot of staying up. Kildare are sandwiched in between Louth and Limerick, and they're 0 from 2. An okay performance against Dublin. Sounded like a shocker in Newbridge today. Would you be worried about Glenryan and Kildare slipping into the Tailteann Cup in Division 3?
Again, it's early days, but I think the manner of that defeat today in Newbridge, to not score for that length of time, to be well beaten. And I don't think Cork are one of the top teams in this division. Kildare are going to have a tougher test down the road as well, but they need a response big time, and they need it quickly. We spoke about this before, Tommy, that you don't want to get into a momentum of bad momentum where things could slide. You look at, we said about Billy Sheehan, sure enough, they find themselves down in Division 4 and they've got a bit of a bounce this season, but it can go wrong quite quickly, and the negativity can engulf the team, the county, the supporters. And for Kildare, okay, they mightn't have expected to get a win in Croke Park against Dublin on the opening night, but it was okay, there was positives from the take from it. But without a doubt, they'd have been looking Newbridge, big crowd, a kind of wounded Cork team. We spoke about Cork's faults last week. They would have fancied that game today, and to put in, okay, losing the game, but the performance and the manner they've lost it, Glenryan will be looking for a massive reaction from Kildare the next day out. Because if they don't get it, well then yes, they are in massive danger of slipping down to Tailteann Cup. Kildare should not. Kildare as a county should not be falling down to that level. Well, that's the worry for them.
This is why I'm asking you, because they're going to Ennis in 2 weeks' time to play Clare, and then they've got Derry at home.
Yeah.
Before they face Louth away. And that game in round 5, if Louth or Limerick pick up a win, either of them will be on 2 points.
I mean, that's the thing. We said you get off to a slow start. The league is unbelievably important this season, but in Division 2 of all the divisions, that you have a slippery start and you are chasing your tail and you can end up in the Tailteann Cup. I didn't expect Kildare to be in this position. Like I said, I would have had Dublin and Derry as the top 2. They've shown that over the first couple of weekends, but we had Kildare pushing them all the way. And if you're a Kildare supporter and you see some of the reaction online to today as well, it's a very, very disappointing start for them. And like I say, if they don't get a result in Ennis, that's huge pressure going down the stretch.
Yeah.
And they could Kildare, a county that size, could find themselves in the Tailor Cup. That would be unthinkable for Glenn Ryan and his management team.
We'll keep a close eye on that one. To talk about the Dubs and just even, I suppose, the benefits of being in Division 2 when you've got such a huge turnover in your panel, and the feeling that there's still a bit of transition going on there with the young players coming through.
Yeah.
The pressure or the spotlight is off a little bit. So today, Dublin raced into an early lead. They could take the foot off the gas, and Limerick couldn't really get it in touch and distance. Just to give you a rundown of the team, David O'Hanlon starts in goals again. Sean McMahon, Cian Murphy, Darren Newcombe in the full back line. Lee Gannon, Greg McEnany and Tom Lahiff in the half back line. Brian Fenton and Pat O'Coffey Byrne in midfield. Scully, Ross McGarry and Kilkenny in the half forward line. Lorcan O'Dell, Dean Rock and Con O'Callaghan up front. So, a fairly well-known front eight, we'll say. But the back six, apart from McMahon, Lahiff, the others are pretty much rookies. I know Gannon had a breakout year last year, but a lot of new players breaking through. And even the bench, Collie Pascal, Killian O'Gara, Adam Fearon, Sean Lowry, Ben Millist. They're not household names.
No, they're not. But we knew that would be the case with Dublin. I said it last week. I expect all throughout the National League that they'll have the core of their really experienced guys, and scattered around will be some of these newer guys. And that's what Dessie Farrell has to do. That's obvious. They need to find depth in their squad now. There's been massive turnover. There was Johnny Cooper just gone in the off-season. A couple of knocks for Owen Merchant and John Small. So Dublin, that is a massive prerequisite of what Dessie Farrell's going to have to find during the National League. And that's, you said it, Division 2 mightn't be the worst place for some of these guys to step into that today. Like, they were comfortable today down in the Gaelic grounds. But if you're a younger guy and some of those guys, particularly in defence, and you're making your Dublin debut, that's not the worst environment to make it in. And we said it nearly on the other side of the scale. Kerry have such depth in their squad. That's a brilliant problem for Jack O'Connor to have. But for Dessie, it's about building up these guys. Can we find 2, 3, probably 4 or 5 players realistically in the ideal scenario? You look at last year, okay, relegated from Division 1, but they got Lee Gannon and Lorcan O'Dell to a lesser extent out of it. And Dublin need those players. It's not household names on the bench. And there's not a David Clifford coming through the ranks either for Dublin. So it's a case of injuries will hurt Dublin, particularly in defence, by losing Philly McMahon, Johnny Cooper the last couple of years. That's an issue for them, that they need to find 2 or 3 of these guys. So it's good to see. There's high hopes for Greg McEnany. They want Owen Merchant and John Small back there come the summertime. But expect to see this from Dublin over the next 6 or 7 weeks. There are going to be names, and you're looking, they are new, but that's what Dublin need to do. And to be fair, to have 2 from 2, it's the best of both worlds for Dessie, that they're winning game. They're looking strong to be promoted back to Division 1 where they want to be, but they're also getting lots of minutes into these younger guys. Come championship time, you still expect maybe 11 or 12 of the kind of household names for Dublin, but they need to find these 2 or 3 guys. And the biggest thing, we said it, Tommy, they need impact off the bench. If you're going to win the All-Ireland, you need to have X factor off the bench. There's inevitably going to be injuries, there could be suspensions. You're looking for 20 players that can play in the white heat of championship. You felt they probably lacked that against Kerry coming down the stretch last year. They very nearly pulled it off, but losing Con O'Callaghan, they didn't have the depth of previous years to replace him. But as a starting point for Dublin, you expect them to win it today in Limerick. That's, like I say, Limerick are arguably the weakest team in the division. But can we see over the next 3 or 4 weeks these guys really putting their hands up? I haven't seen it yet, and I didn't see it really, despite the new players starting against Kildare. It wasn't a great performance, but you're hoping over the next 3 or 4 weeks that these guys start standing up. And maybe like Donal O'Sullivan from Kerry today,
that's the thing,
making it hard for Dessie Farrell not to pick you.
Yeah,
that's the key thing for Dublin.
We're talking about the young players there. What is the measure for the more established players? Con O'Callaghan kicks 4 points today. Brian Fenton gets his second goal in 2 games, palming in an O'Callaghan effort. So, what is the measure for those lads? Do they have their own standards that they're meeting, that they know that they're meeting in terms of like training and hitting on the pitch, or what are you expecting to see from them?
Like that, you're looking for a bit of consistency in the performances. Like, you can't get away from the fact that Dublin were very open about this last season. Throughout the National League, their biggest players didn't perform very well. And that's, you can talk about transition and you can talk about, oh, we need to bring young guys through. The bottom line, Dublin were relegated because their key players probably didn't perform to the levels we're so accustomed to. So for those guys, look, they've built up unbelievable CVs. They've had excellent, unbelievable careers to date. But for the likes of Kieran, Kerry, Fento, Conor Callan, it's just getting that sharpness into your game. Like, the season, it's not really a marathon anymore. It is a bit of a sprint. So you want to get that form and get it early. And you can see Con was probably a little bit rusty last week. Already today, you can see sharpening those things up. And without a doubt, when you're, even as an established player, you're going into these league games, Division 1, 2, 3, or 4, it doesn't matter. You'll have certain things. Okay, this is what I want to target today. This is what I want to get: 4 shots at the post. I want to get 3 points for play, 4 or 5 contact tackles. They'll have standards whether they're playing, you know, a potentially weaker Limerick team in Division 2 or playing Kerry in Division 1 National League game in Croke Park. Their standards, that's what's been such a key part of their success. But those guys are looking to perform every bit as well. And put the wrongs of their last spring campaign last year, try and put that right. And that's where it's good to see that these guys are playing a bit better this season, and they'll take confidence from that as well.
Yeah. So that's the makeup of Division 2, 2 rounds in. So not quite halfway through, but we're 2 rounds in out of 7. In Division 3, Cavan, Offaly and Down all have 4 points, so they're looking good so far. Westmeath are on 2 alongside Fermanagh, who'll be disappointed with that 1 point defeat to Offaly today. Antrim, Tip and Longford are rooted to the bottom. It was good signs for Andy McEntee's Antrim, how far they pushed down on Saturday night. They were getting good reviews from the journalists that were at the game, and from what I could see on Twitter. But Tipperary and Longford, I think, could be in a bit of trouble there at the bottom of Division 3.
Longford just like I was surprised to see. I thought the 2 top teams were Cavan and Westmeath last week. The Westmeath got off to a slow start, but they fairly put Paddy Christie's Longford team to the sword today, and you feel like Westmeath. I said it. I think they're the best team in the division, despite being pipped by Cavan last week. You expect them to kick on, but to be fair to Conor Laverty, okay, they might have been lucky to beat. I wouldn't have expected them to win that game against Antrim probably a bit more comfortably than they did. But again, similar to me, Tommy, 2 from 2. There's not a whole pile else you can ask for.
Exactly.
Whether they can keep that going and get game promotion, time will tell. But for Tipperary to lose Sweeney this week, tough start for them. And for Longford as well, just again, the manner of these defeats, you know, to be beaten out the gate in these games this early in the season, that's a worrying sign for any team, no matter the division. If we're being well beaten, that's a hard place to be as a group this early in the season. Yeah.
As I mentioned in Division 4, heart and mouth stuff from Leitrim once more, but they have 2 wins from 2 alongside Laois. They're both on 4 points. Niall Cruz, Carlow were on 3 points after an opening day draw with Wicklow and a win today or Saturday against Waterford. Sligo were on 2, so they'll be closing in there as well. London, Wexford and Wicklow have a point apiece, and Waterford are at the bottom of the table on 0 points. So that's Division 4 and Division 3. Paddy, that's nearly us for this week. I don't think we can leave it without ending on the club saga that surprisingly actually wrapped up before the weekend. So
yeah, you know, I expected that to drag on a hell of a lot further than it did. But Glen, to be fair to them, on Friday decided that this wasn't a road they wanted to go down. So the GAA finally came out this week, claiming that they handled this situation well. Jesus Christ, I'd hate to see them handle something badly if that's the case. Crokes were obviously going to appeal the decision, and had indicated to do so. So for Glen, they just said, look, this isn't for us. There's no winners in this, Tommy. I think that's been clear over the last 2 weeks. Since today, 2 weeks, it's been a bit of a farce. Glen, both clubs were put in difficult positions. The GAA, kind of the hospital pass to Glen. You got the sense maybe Glen didn't even really want to appeal this. They were put in a position where there was huge pressure and huge scrutiny on them. We said it last week. If I was a player in that dressing room, I wouldn't really have wanted to replay that game. And maybe that's what it's come to.
I feel like I get what you're saying there. I feel like on principle, the manner in which the GA put it back in them in a
that I think that's one of the poorest aspects of this, Tommy.
Yeah.
You know, really, really, the governing body should be definitive in terms of making a call. And we used the example this week, Peter McKenna with Croke Park. You know, the Katie Taylor issue and Eddie Hearn fella saying sell ice to an Eskimo. That fella, I wouldn't really take everything he says with a pinch of salt, but puts puts Croke Park in a really awkward position. And people say, "Oh, why is the Katie Taylor fight not happening there? It's Croke Park looking for more money." Blah 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 blah. And Peter McKenna just comes out straight away, very definitive in his actions. This is the facts. This is what's happening. But that kind of decisive leadership, people might agree with it or not, but it was, I'm going to come out, I'm representing this organisation, and I'm going to be definitive in what I say. And it gives people a lot of clarity. It doesn't allow, if he doesn't come out, I'm sure over the last 4 or 5 days, this will be getting more and more coverage and people talking about the finances of Croke Park. But I think the biggest issue for the GAA in terms of this club saga was just the silence. It was just the aura of, we are not really going to deal with this. We don't really want to deal with this. And that was surprising to see them come out this week and kind of somewhat defend the situation.
I'd like to say it's strange.
Well, I don't think I'm alone in saying I did not get the sense of that at all. Yeah. It's just been, there hasn't been a winner in this at all for the GAA, for the clubs. It's left a bad taste. And look, if there's any positive out of it at all, you would say that maybe the substitution debacle going forward at all levels, particularly the summer coming into the championship, should be rectified in this situation. Really,
I think they said
not be happening again.
I think they said they might look at it, but Shane Hannon of OTBAM was speaking to Tom Ryan and Larry McCarthy at the annual meeting that they had there the other night when they were revealing their accounts. McCarthy had no interest engaging in any conversation about it. Tom Ryan, to be fair to him, did answer Shane's questions, but you could just see how uncomfortable McCarthy was. Didn't want to talk about it. But the final thing on this, there's a piece in the Sindo today by Tommy Conlon, and I just wanted to get your take on it. And the headline it echoes really the piece. So the headline really isn't being taken out of context here. Glen took too long to take their beating. They were looking more and more mean-spirited for resorting to litigation. Having done their best, this is the first paragraph, having done their best to take the good out of it for the winners, the vanquished scuttled away from the mess they created. When the penny dropped, they were starting to look like poor losers.
Okay,
Friday night, Glen did a U-turn because they realised they'd overplayed their hand and backed themselves into a corner by pursuing Kilmacud Crokes through the committee rooms, having not been good enough to beat them in the field of play.
I don't know if I fully agree with the tone of that article either now, I have to say. Like, from the beginning, I admit I did not think this game should have went to a replay, but I think the clubs were put in a really, really difficult position. Glen, of course, being put back onto them. And subsequently you could see they probably didn't even want to appeal for a replay in the first place, but the national coverage this got, they were put in an unbelievably awkward position. So I don't necessarily agree with the tone of going down that road, but look, we're 2 weeks later, it's been put to bed, but it's been an unsavoury incident. To wrap up, like we said, it was a really, really good club season.
Yeah,
the split season was the first kind of go at it. The club games got unbelievable coverage, and the GAA's got too much coverage over the last 2 weeks that they didn't need. But I think everyone's probably happy. Happy might be the wrong word, but that this thing has come to an end, because it was going all the way to the DRA. This was going to drag on and on and on. It's been put to bed, but I think the handling of it has put everyone in awkward positions. Yeah. And look, I don't know if we go down the road of kind of giving out about Glen.
I'm putting it on the record here right now.
I don't agree with that.
Whatever about whether Glen wanted to do it or not, I think they were well within their rights to appeal it. They should have appealed it, but it should have been taken out of their hands in the first place. It should have been dealt with. It was that obvious and blatant a mistake having the 16th player on the field for that last play. So anyways, put to bed. We'll leave it at that, Paddy. Great to chat to you this week. Thanks for staying with me for the full pod. James, was great to stay with us for an hour.
Dedication. We don't even need that fella.
Exactly. So looking forward to previewing round 3 of the leagues next week with you. So we'll catch up again next Monday on the Football Pod. Thanks to everybody at home for listening in. We'll keep our eye on our WhatsApp group with James to see if we get any videos from Miami.
Get him home safe and sound.
Yeah. Take care, Paddy. Thanks, man.
Good night.
Well done.